I know. I was just thinking I did it. I'm good. Okay. That's what I'm just going to remember. Yeah, tell me what you need.
Okay, good. And you're good. I know they talked about the college and everything.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's board meeting. I've asked Mr. Ray Lee to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening to everyone. Once again, thank you for coming. This is the meeting of the board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We allow opportunity for public comments later in the agenda. If you would like to address the board, please fill out the white card with the blue border and give it to the staff at the table near the entrance to the boardroom. If you wish to speak to an agenda item, please indicate on the card and your name will be called at that portion of the agenda. You will have 3 minutes, and we would like to ask you to stay to the 3 minutes in fairness to all of the folks who would like to speak tonight. If you are a student, please check the student box on the card. Due to the high number of public comment cards, we'd like to have our students speak first. And we want to make sure that they return home to get rest if they need, for school tomorrow. Let's see. We would also like to ask that all comments made at the portion of the agenda or at the end where communication from the audience is requested, we'd like to make sure that comments attacking a public employee does not happen, and that general comments are really okay, but not attacking an employee, public employee, whether it's a present employee or current employee or a past employee. Okay. With that, we would like to ask Dr. Watts if there are any changes to the agenda.
President Venkatasalam, members of the board, Ms. Howley, there has been a change to the agenda. A supplemental personnel report has been added to the agenda for your review.
I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the change to the agenda, please.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any discussions or questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. All right, motion passes. We're at next up, 2.0, recognition. And there will be photographs taken following both recognitions, so we'd like to ask everybody to stay. First up, we're at the National Board Certification Awards, and Dr. Pam Onsing will be presenting a summary about the program, and we'll invite Dr. Watts to present the certificates, and school board will also be congratulating all the staff members.
President Ben Gadazalam, members of the board, Dr. Watts, Ms. Howley. Tonight, we want to honor 40 KSD staff members who have achieved national board certifications in their positions. We have 32 teachers, 4 school counselors, 1 occupational therapist, 2 school psychologists, and 1 certificate of clinical competence American Speech Language Hearing Association. National Board believes higher standards for teachers means better learning for our students. It is the gold standard in teacher certification, and it's offered in 25 different certificates. National Board certified teachers are recognized nationally as being the best teachers in the profession, and they comprise approximately 3% of the national teaching workforce. Candidates typically invest 200 to 400 hours in creating their portfolios. KSD partners with KEA to provide support for teachers choosing to pursue their certification. I'd like to acknowledge Charlene Vermillion tonight, who has served this year as our lead facilitator. We have 10 participants in the program this year. Thank you, Charlene. As you know, the National Board Certification Program aligns with 2 of our district goals in the blueprint. Goal 1, preparing all students to be career and college ready, and Goal 4, recruiting, hiring, developing, and retaining a diverse and premier workforce. Our blueprint goal is to increase the number of National Board recipients each year, reaching 25% by 2021. With tonight's designations, KSD now has 184 teachers and 90 ESA staff who have earned this distinction. So that together is about 15% of our workforce. We are well on our way. So to you, all of our National Board recipients tonight, we are very proud of you, and we thank you for the extra hard work you have done on behalf of our students. Thank you so very much. I'm going to begin now, and they have already received their certificates, so if the board would like to line up, and they will come up and you'll shake their hands and congratulate them personally. So I'm going to begin by reading the names of both those who could and could not be here tonight. As I call your name, recipients come up and be congratulated individually by the board, and then go to the front corner of by the flag, and we're going to arrange to have a group photo. Okay. I'll do the National Board Certified Teachers first. They are Lacey Berry, Michael Christensen, Kathy Condry, Matthew Chaika, Nausicaa Davis, Tracy Dunham, Claudia Eppel, Aaron Erickson, Jeremiah Garza, Rachel Gaska, Sarah Hall, Jennifer Heineman, Jennifer Hoagland, Rachel Hopkins, Abigail Hunt, Jill Jacobs, Tessa Curley, Melissa Larson, Alana Lobeck, Eric Lynch, Heidi McElroy, Don Pringle, Kimberly Roberts, Molly Robinette, Tracy Romine, Sarah Shaw, Sherry Simpson, Yolanda Snyder, Zach Stockdale, Kevin Trollier, Eric Wall, John Wu, and the remainder who could not be here tonight: Chelsea Garlington, Maya Smith, Parisa Crane, Jamie Eager, Lacey Foltz, Wanda Howlett, Patricia Moss, and Rebecca Porras. Those are our names. Let's give them one round of applause finally. All right, we're ready for our photo. So let's just go to the corner. All right, we'll continue with 2.02, Proclamation, Administrative Professionals Week. And I will read the proclamation recognizing April 22nd to the 28th as Administrative Professionals Week. And Kathy Reichert, Office Manager at Kent Meridian High, and others will be present to accept the proclamation. So the Professionals Week, Administrative Professionals Week. Whereas Administrative Professionals Week recognizes the many roles and responsibilities of the administrative professionals in our schools and district offices, and whereas the Kent School District Board of Directors acknowledges the critical role of administrative professionals to supporting the education of our students and ensuring that students are successfully prepared for their futures, and whereas administrative professionals work in the district's 42 school buildings, the transportation building, and the central administrative campus, and whereas our administrative professionals are often the first impression and the face of Kent School District to the thousands of parents, community members, and students that walk in the doors of our offices and schools or call on the telephone, and therefore serve as key frontline public relation ambassadors. And whereas the school board recognizes the expertise and dedication of the district's administrative professionals, their work to master technology and to effectively utilize communication skills, their vital contributions and commitment to teamwork, and their willingness to learn and accept new challenges and opportunities. Whereas the school board wishes to commend each and every one of our Kent School District's administrative professionals for their service to students, staff, parents, and community members each and every day. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District proclaim April 22nd to the 28th, 2018 Administrative Professionals Week in Kent School District and urges all citizens to join in this observance. All right, and Ms. Reichert is here. Oh, and if everyone from the administrative professionals would be able to stand up.
We could come to you.
My goodness.
We have one more special recognition, and as we know, I think last year, Dr. Watson Board had 2 administrative professionals, executive assistants helping us, and this past year we have had only Karen Holly helping us. And she's done just a remarkable job of pulling together, as you know, how many emails we get every day. Emails, processes, structure, and she has been invaluable. And we just want to, as a board, recognize Karen Holly on this Administrative Professionals Week. Okay. But I don't want you All right, shall we take photos, I guess, next? Okay.
Picture Karen.
Before we go to the next agenda item, Dr. Watts would like to take a moment of privilege to announce something.
Thank you, President Vengadaslam. And if it pleases the board, I would like to take a moment to recognize and thank members of the Black Education Strategy Roundtable who are leaders in the African American community, several of whom who have been like family to me and to others. But I would like for those individuals who are here to stand and be recognized. I see some of you hiding in the back, or at least wave your hand. But thank you so much for your presence.
Thank you very much. All right, 3.0 presentations. We're at 3.01, the budget status update for March of 2018. And Mr. Ben Rarick, Executive Director, Budget and Finance, and Lisa Tyler, Supervisor for the Fiscal Services, will be presenting a budget status update for March 2018, and will answer questions from the board.
Thank you, President Vengadaslam, members of the board, Dr. Watts, Ms. Howley. So tonight we are presenting budget status results through the month of March. And again, these are preliminary numbers. There's still about probably a week to go before our accounting staff formally closes the month of March. But again, preliminary figures as of early this week through March. And similar to the presentation that I've provided for the past few months, I'll be talking tonight about going over revenues, revenues by major source, both current month and year-to-date levels, expenditures by program and object, but again, both current month and year-to-date, enrollment review, which is as of April 1st, April enrollment counts, a fund balance review, and then just if there's anything that I feel we need to make you aware of in the upcoming months. And then, of course, a questions opportunity at the end. So first of all, revenues by major source. Let me first say that the presentation through the month of February versus the month of March, it's pretty status quo, so not a lot of surprises. We're maintaining the levels that we would expect. In fact, our fund balance, projected fund balance, that I will refer to later in the presentation, is almost flat. In fact, it's just slightly higher than what we presented last month. So I guess that's an indicator of, again, we're on track with our plan to finish out the fiscal year 17-18. So for revenues by major source, you can see the columns that shows current month collections and year to date. There really isn't anything here that I feel the need to point out other than the level of local taxes. And it's not a huge concern, and I'm going to talk more about this in a later slide, but the collections that we actually saw for the month of March were slightly lower than what we would have expected. Not a big deal. Typically with property taxes, we know what we're going to collect based on our levy amount, but what's added to that in any given month are collections for delinquent taxes and things like that. And so if we should happen to see a month where we're receiving more than we would have expected, that would tell me that more delinquent taxes were collected and vice versa. So if we were a little bit lower than expected, maybe we're not seeing as much of those extra revenues. So again, not a huge concern, and especially when we see next month, because next month we're collecting a significant amount of taxes. So I just wanted to point that out for this month, that we might see, again, in one of the next slides, I'll show you. Sorry about that. Expenditures by major program, again, everything looks very normal. So we are now 7 months into the fiscal year, so we would expect, if we were just looking at flat spending levels, we would expect us to be at approximately 58.3% of our budget. You can see the column off to the right that shows those percentages for this current year. We're at 58.5, so just slightly higher than where we would expect our spending levels to be. Last year at this same time, we were 57.8, so, real similar levels. And so that is by program. Again, nothing by program that I necessarily feel the need to point out, other than possibly the other instructional programs. You see we're spending at 78% of our budget. What that category is it's mostly federal programs, but it involves, it's your title programs, but it also involves several smaller, much smaller grants, and those can vary from year to year. So this year, in those smaller federal grants, we do have less than we did last year, but our spending we would spend those down quicker throughout the year. So that's why the 78%, we've spent our grants early in the year, basically, is what that is saying. So again, that's not a concern. It's just that we're spending some of those smaller grants down quickly. And then expenditures by object, which is the type of expenditure. So we have salaries versus MSOCs. Salaries, again, should be very predictable. So we're right on target with our salary and benefit costs. And again, I'm going to point to that. We're 7 months into the year, so 58.3%. You can see overall, we're 58.5% of our budget. Salaries, again, are where we'd expect them to be. And you can see over here in the right column, our MSOCs, with the exception of contract services, are significantly below that target. So again, our spending controls are really being seen there as far as not spending well below our budgeted levels, except for our contract services, which those tend to be a little, I don't want to say less controllable, but really in a way they are, because they're contract services, many of them, or very much fixed costs, things like utilities, insurance payments. So we don't have as much discretion as far as not spending those budgeted line items. So again, that's the one line item that we will continue to really watch closely. But the other categories, the supplies, travel, and capital outlay, you can see that those spending levels are well below the budgeted amounts. So that's obviously a good thing. Now, these next two slides compare March to March last year to this year. And so here's where I was talking about our local taxes, where we appear to be less than what we received last year. 3.7%, I mean, that's significant, but we are talking about $35 million. So, try to think of it in relative terms. And again, seeing this same slide next month, it will look really completely different with our spring property tax collections. And so, as I just looked down here by major source, we are up in, as far as the amount that we've collected from year to year in every category, except for this federal special, which again, those are some of those smaller federal, smaller grants that we just have less of those grants this year than we did last year. So, and they're on a reimbursement basis. So we've collected less than we did last year. Because we have less of them to collect on, if that makes sense. In the last line, the reason that is such a swing from the prior year is what is in that category is we see a supporting transfer from the capital projects fund over to the general fund to support expenditures that are appropriately charged to the tech levy, capital and tech levy. So those are that, and we see that as basically a revenue transfer from one fund to the other. So that's what that 590,000 represents is transfer in of revenue from capital projects to the general fund. And so we have the same slide looking at expenditures. And again, March to March, year to year, salaries and benefits are up from year to year as expected. A lot of that is seen in the benefit area, 6.6% up over the previous year, and that's as expected. But again, pointing to the MSOC categories, you can see how we are, again, significantly below our spending comparisons from one year to the next in supplies, travel, and capital outlay, and pretty well even with our contract services, which, again, we're watching those. Those are set expenses. Insurance, utilities, again, we wouldn't expect those to go down from year to year. But watching those closely. Enrollment, and this is as of the month of April. So our current enrollment, you can see our K-12 FTE is just over 25.6 FTE, and then the other enrollment categories, as you can see there. Taking the current enrollment and averaging out, which OSPI does every month. So you can see that our annual average K-12 is running slightly higher than our projected enrollment, which is what we budgeted on. And so the variance from annual average to our budget currently for the month of April is 35.45, meaning we are ahead of our projection by that amount. Last year at this time, we were actually under projected. We were already under projected by 25.5 FTE, and so we did end the year. Our enrollment was we had over projected our enrollment, which, we don't want to do that. So again, we feel like we're in a really good position at this point in the year. If the trend continues as it has for the past couple of years, comparing where we were last year and how we ended and where we're at this year and how we will end, we should be really close to being right on target with our projection. So again, we have to watch for the decline in enrollment throughout the spring, but it's looking very, very positive for us. Fund balance as of the end of March. Now, I know this is not the good news slide, but for the end of March, we are showing a negative fund balance of almost $8 million. Give me one more month, and that will completely turn around. So based on projections through March and knowing what we know today, we're projecting our ending fund balance as of August to be just over $2 million, which is, I think that's about 130,000 greater than what we reported last month. And so, again, that's, pretty well stable. And so, our cost-saving measures and, closely managing our budgets, it's working because we feel like we're going to end where we believe we need to be and what we've shared out previously. And then here's our trend line. Again, I think in February was the first time our lines crossed, meaning our fund balance is finally greater than it was this time last year, and we continue to do so. So this is the slide we all get excited about. So we're improving. We're not continuing the trend of, less and less fund balance. So this is, again, a pictorial view of where we're going to end where we plan to be. And it's a positive, good news slide. And so looking ahead to next month, I guess the most exciting thing is that we will collect our April property taxes. And so that should Well, it will. The plan is that will sustain us through the end of the year and then carry us into fiscal years 18, 19. And, again, we are currently in our budget process for 18, 19. So we are kind of working in two different fiscal years, paying close attention to this year, but also thinking ahead to our plans for 18, 19 and beyond, of course. And my projections as of, and I started last month, that they incorporate any of the cost-saving measures that we've already put in place. So some of the positions that we've seen reductions in, those are being taken into account, and anything else that we know of, at this time. So those are carried forward through the projections. Okay. Any questions?
All right, would like to start?
Me? Oh, I always have
Right, go ahead.
questions.
Yes. Go for it.
You actually answered one of my questions on the Fed special revenues going down. It's, because you get down and you get all the individual things that are
Right.
usually, they only fund it if you have it and they reimburse it. So those are just down because of the expenses that we incur
Right.
for those specific programs. Okay, and then, so looking at it's the year-to-date expense slide. I'm backing up to it, right before, went the wrong way. Right before the enrollment analysis. So it's the year-to-date expenditures, and we're looking at materials and supplies, so we're down, which is consistent with prior months. And so I want to understand the next level of where we're down, because things, materials and supplies is like food for the lunches and bus parts and things like that. And to the extent that we serve less lunches, we're going to incur less food costs. So I get that. But then some of the stuff like sheet music or custodial supplies or paper, things like that, that you can consider we use on a per student basis. And so what I'm trying to get at is how much of that is, and you may not know, so this is more of trying to get an understanding of how much is savings, meaning we use too much before and we're more efficient, we're using digital technology, or something about being more efficient versus anything that's being picked up by parent donations, PTA donations, things like that, where we're just shifting the cost out of our budget and onto anyone else.
Okay, so yes, I will follow up and do some more thorough analysis. I can probably safely say that the savings we're seeing here is not in the areas of food, things like that are essential to sustaining those programs. We're probably going to see it more in the terms of the disposable supplies and materials cost, which might, be exactly the classroom supplies possibly, and just things that the more discretionary type items that could very, realistically be put off. Things that do we need it now or can we put it off? It's those types of things. But we will definitely do a drill down and give you some more detail on that.
Yep. Because this is where I want to say, we're underspending budget, which is great, but I want to make sure that even that underspending is sustainable. I mean, I'm looking
Right.
through the very detailed list, bus parts, HVAC, filters, things that we might not need to spend, but we know we need those. I don't want a bus that doesn't have the right parts. And so making sure that even if we're at this budget level, as we go forward, we make sure it's at whatever the right level is going forward. And just kind of getting more of that detail. And it could be, is it volume driven? We're doing less trips. Are we serving less lunches? That makes a lot more sense in terms of we're spending less supplies on that. So thank you.
So I just had one, just kind of clarification again on an enrollment analysis. So OSPI and how we're actually funded by the state is based on the average.
Yes.
And the average is over the entire course of the year, or is it, okay.
They do. Every month they update, and it's just, if we're in September, it's 1 month. If we're in December, it's the total divided by 4. So it's just a straight average enrollment, and that's what we're funded on every month. And that every month, that number changes slightly based on what our current month enrollment, does up or down. So our annual average will be tweaked a little bit every month. And again, you'll see that annual average probably go down from here throughout the year, expected. But again, based on where we're at, and through April, actually, we're 35 FTE above our projections, so that's a pretty good cushion to get us through the year and end, pretty close to our projection.
Okay, right, because what would happen is if it went under, then we're going to actually receiving less
Right,
money in those latter
right,
months.
right,
Okay.
yeah.
I just want to say, because looking up there, I look at current enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
It's below our budget, but making sure that average, which is 25876.64, stays above our budgeted annual average. That's where if those two numbers get close together, that's where you're throwing the 35 anyway.
Right, you want our average to stay equal to or greater than our budgeted annual average, because we budget on average.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to just sort of extend Ross's question and kind of talk about the expenditures that we do show, if we can start looking at also the opportunity cost of not having it. And I'm specifically speaking about some of the positions, and so that's more of a staffing issue, I think, than anything. As of late, we've had a lot of questions about staff members who are doing certain things that may or may not get done come next school year. And so we really need to be mindful of that and what that will cost us. And so that is not a picture that we're seeing very clearly in this setup. So the idea of having a cost center type program-based budgeting, I think we need to start shifting. And from what we heard at the legislative update, I know that there's a local revenue sub-fund that we need to establish, and also sort of divvy up our local dollars versus state dollars. And I'm just wondering how far we are on that and if we will ever see that.
Oh, we will see it. We're actually meeting on that, is it next week? Yeah, to discuss, we're well into the planning phase of that, and I think what, and WSIPSI is, kind of the leader in that. And I think the suggestion is to add another digit on the end of our account code to serve for that purpose. But yeah, we are very much working and looking at that, because that will take effect September.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? Questions? All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Tyler.
That's correct. And Ben.
All right. Okay. No. We are up to 4.0, Board of Directors discussion and approval. And we are up to 4.01, resolution number 1540, Finance Committee formation. The Board of Directors will discuss and approve this resolution of the Finance Committee formation, and I would like to ask for a motion to approve resolution number 1540, Finance Committee formation.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any discussions or questions?
I know I'm reading it here that we're looking at holding work sessions in May and June to talk about 18-19, though we're also doing budget planning for 18-19, so there's a slight concern that we don't form this committee until after June, that they won't have much of a direct impact on the 18-19 budget, and that'll be kind of set, though not officially set. But I don't think delaying it would help, so we still need to go forward in doing that, keeping in mind that we're concurrently doing 18-19 planning in the normal process and then trying to involve this committee as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the only other thing that I had is when I first read it, it is an advisory role. And so I know the word assist at first I went, but when I reread it again with assist being as an advisory role, so I know Ross talked about that last time, is making sure that the board still has the final say. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, just as context, this came up, we had in 2016 discussed this briefly with the board, with the then board, and then last school board meeting, we had a discussion of forming a committee because of all the public mistrust, and we had initiated that discussion, and the board agreed that we would do a work session to come up with a policy and some procedures in how this particular committee would be formed, and the difference between this committee would be, and the others we have, is that this would be one of the first board-initiated committees where the board would actually pick representatives to be on this board versus the district appointing staff members or outside folks. So in light of that, I think we're all in agreement, we need one, and we want to build public trust. Not that there's anything to be hidden, but more so that, that you as the public feel completely assured that we are being good stewards of public funds. Okay, and so with that, I am going to call for a vote. All those in favor of resolution number 1540, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. All right, motion passes. And I'd like to ask Ken Smith, who would like to speak to agenda item 4.01 at this point.
Hi there, I'm Ken Smith. I'm a professor at Central Washington University in accounting, and I was contacted by some people in the district about the questions. I also was a former school board member for the North Shore School District, which has 4 comprehensive high schools, which is a little smaller than Kenneth, but similar. We went through a similar process of trying to create a committee like this, and it's actually going to be started, I think, this coming month. And so I really recommend that you move forward with this. I think it's a great idea, and to continue that. I sent you, just before the meeting, a document that we had seen on an audit committee, and there's a lot of different ideas on how you can go finance committee or an audit committee and what the formal roles were. It's a 19-page document, and it has, I think, 6 different professional associations that think through and have done work in this area. So since you're going to have some study sessions, I think it's a good idea to take your time a little bit to make sure you structure that, but definitely moving forward. One idea is to get the finance committee part of it going as soon as possible, and then maybe considering the elements of audit committee, because audit committee kind of is a state-of-the-art term that can have certain kinds of different connotations. So I recommend your work, and then also I made the outreach via email to make myself available as a content expert in the area and do research on school districts and school different finance. So we've been happy to help with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken. All right. Okay, next up is 4.02, second reading and approval of policy 1801, revised race and equity. So we will discuss and approve policy 1801, and Dr. Luann Decker will be available to field questions. So at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve policy 1801, revised race and equity.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any discussions or questions?
I have questions, actually.
All right.
Yes. So I was looking over it. So my questions really revolve around implementation and goal setting and accountability. So I didn't see any of that outlined in the policy or the procedures. I saw a yearly annual review by the board, and so I'm wondering when does that become a part of the policy or procedures, and what does that look like? Is there a plan to have an implementation plan, and do we have baseline data? What are we looking at, and what does that look like?
Right. So one of the main changes that we brought to the board in this first reading this last month was changing and moving the accountability and goals actually to the procedure for that reason, to allow us to align to the accountability, the measurables, and to our current strategic blueprint, because we were not really able to do that with our accountability and goals sitting in policy. That was the recommendation of Equity Policy Advisory is to move that out so we could exactly do that alignment. We then need to, we will be accessing our Equity Council that is an advisory to our superintendent to help us do that alignment, implementation, and the goal setting. And so that was purposely moved into procedure to allow us to do that alignment.
And so is there a timeline for that?
We would anticipate, well, first of all, we did the update on the policy the last time at the last board meeting, and we would anticipate having most of the goal setting hopefully done by the end of summer.
And are you, when you're doing the goal setting, are you including, I know with the Policy Audit and Equity Committee, and you had a community-based committee, are they going to be involved in that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So just one more point. In the procedure, it actually states a timeline, I think. It says that the superintendent will present the board with a plan to address the goals and ensure alignment to the district strategic plan no more than 3 months after the adoption.
Correct.
Okay.
So when we adopted this policy the first time in March 2017, Dr. Watts presented a 5-year plan to the board at that point that broke down each of those accountability goals to kind of plan out over the next 5 years. What we discovered in hindsight is also then looking back saying, okay, we actually need to bring those measurables forward and create a more strategic alignment to our strategic plan. So that's why we brought it into procedure, and that's what we should get here within the next 3 months.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, I would like to, I think, maybe add some, I'm not quite sure. I think there's a sense that when it is a district-appointed or superintendent-appointed committee, board members cannot be present, is that right? Or they're not part of the formal committee, but they can attend those meetings? Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And this was a conversation that I've seen questions in the audience and want to make sure that there's clarity on the equity advisory. We do have an advisory that has been created by members of the community, or is comprised of members of the community, members of staff, students. Just like our superintendent student advisory, we have school board directors who participate, and we certainly would honor and welcome the participation of our school board directors in our equity advisory work. It is work that can't be done alone, and we know that that is part of our core value, so look forward to that next opportunity.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Decker, Dr. Watts, thank you. All right. I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Okay, the motion passes. We are up to 5.0 consent agenda. I'd like to ask the board if they would like to pull an agenda item for discussion.
I'd like to pull 5.08.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to pull.
And then I'd also like to pull 5.09 personnel report, please.
Personnel.
Fred Long and Dave Buzzard, Facilities Maintenance. Here, Jason.
Actually, I apologize, I need to add 5.07 to that. So we'll start with 5.07. Change order number 3, New Covington Elementary. Okay, yes. So we need a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 5.07, 5.08, and 5.09.
I so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. All right, motion passes. All right, going to 5.07, which is the change order number 3 for New Covington Elementary. The question I had was, it looks like so far the total change order has been about 5%, over what was estimated. And so I'm just wondering historically how much more money we've added to change orders for the undistributed costs. You know, typically, how much more, how far do we go before we say, you know, this is too much?
I'd say we've got another change order that we're processing right now, but I would say we're not going to be over probably 6 or 7% of the contingency, which is probably 1% of the total project cost.
Okay.
Which is what we look at. We look at the cost of change orders against the actual construction contract, not against the undistributed. Because the undistributed also finances other things that come up during the construction that the facilities department purchases outright.
So what happens to the excess funds?
The excess, once the project's closed out by the board, whatever is excess in the budget will go into the bond contingency, the overall bond contingency for use later on for other projects or for new projects once we get closer to the end of the bond issue.
Okay, so typically it's 6% and then the balance
Goes back into
go back to the contingency.
each project has its own contingency, plus we have a overall bond contingency.
Okay.
So once we close the project out, anything that's left in that project contingency would go into the overall bond contingency.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, we are then up to 5.08, the top building funding. And Director Hardy.
Yeah.
Director
Debbie, because I'd like an explanation. The funding needs to be assigned from the 2002 bond issue, 2006 bond issue, and the 2016 state match. I didn't know there was anything left. I've never even heard about the 2002 bond.
Yes, there is some monies left in the 2002 bond issue, and we felt it was appropriate to close that bond issue out and charge that amount to the top project instead of trying to take a different number of projects and close that bond issue out.
And
there is some money left in the 2006, so we'll use that. We have projects left in the 2006 to complete that are ongoing, but we know we have a balance, so we'll use what balance we have there to also offset the cost of top, and whatever that doesn't cover, we can take out of the state match for Covington, which is 2016 bond issue.
okay, so the top building funding is taken care of?
Yes.
Okay. And they're not taking back the building?
No.
Okay.
No, it's all paid for. We just have to assign the funding.
Okay, and so my question was, so it was the full amount at the top. I guess there's no dollars amount in here, so I know exactly what we're actually.
We're waiting for an update on the balances of the different bond issues so that we can assign that amount.
Okay. Okay, but obviously we need to pay for the top facility. I just want to make sure that we're not impacting other projects.
No, the funding out of the 2002 and 2006 is extra money that would be in contingency. And the state match money in 2016 is not planned for anything. Because when we do a bond issue, we full fund the projects, and if we get some money from the state, that goes into the overall bond contingency for future projects.
Thank you.
5.09, personnel report.
We're done. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. David?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Fred, David.
Yes, hi.
Hi. So, a lot of people on here, but though this is not inconsistent with prior years at this time, so I'm not concerned about that. I'm talking about the number. Our number is now 60 FTE. We need to reduce through attrition. Through what we have here, how close are we? When can you tell us that we're there? And we've already met that number.
Absolutely. So at this point, we have 71 total resignations. We expect every year we approximately have 160 that leave. So the process is kind of an interesting one. Allocations have gone out to schools based on the CBA ratios and caps and all of that is all, we're complying with that language. But we built staffing allocations with 60 FTE less than last year. So we know we're going to have 60 less positions. The next piece is that principals have returned their staffing. They did that on Friday. So now we can see where we have those vacancies and where we have overstaffing. And now we're going to move into the involuntary transfer process, which we go through every single spring to shift our staffing around. And at that point, we'll have a very clear understanding of where our vacancies are. Some important dates to remember is that by June 1st, July 1st, we need to know from our employees whether or not they're going to return to us. So that's a key time. So May and June, we should have a very good understanding of where we are with resignations. We do have some resignations that come in during July and August. But by July 1, we are seeing the bulk of our resignations. So to answer your question on timeline, May and June.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. All right, we are now to 6.0, the communication. No. Oh, all right, sorry. All right, jumping the gun. Okay, so I would like to ask for a motion to approve 5.07, 5.08, and 5.09.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. All right, motion passes. Now we're on to 6.0, communication from the audience. Okay. And we will,
We're moving this up.
gosh, a lot of stacks here. All right. Okay. All right, we will begin with our student. Starting with Maxwell Hernandez first. Okay. Followed by Hal Hassan. And if you can come to the podium to my right, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. And again, as a reminder, board is listening for understanding. We will not be commenting on any of the comments made by the public tonight.
Hi guys, I'm Holly Hassan. I'm from iGrad, and my graduation year is next year. You know, I was so happy because I would have been the first one in my family to graduate, to walk that stage and all. And then we come to find out that iGrad might shut down, and like that was our only hope because we was working with Ms. Cleveland, our principal, Sampson, and other staffs. You know, it was easy out there. When I went to iGrad, when I went to KM, my previous school, it wasn't that good because I'm small. The hallways was bad, for one. I was getting ran into so many big people, and I was having a tough, hard time at KM. I almost dropped out until I was 16 trying to drop out until I came to iGrad. The staffs helped me out and all. Like, I was really, like, it was really tough out there until I came to iGrad. We was working with the staffs. And at iGrad, there's a lot of class of 2019. And, like, in the Kent School District, that's, like, the toughest class, 2019. And really, like, iGrad was our only hope to graduate, walk on stage. But this bad news came. And, like, if you guys, Kent School District, take away iGrad, I just feel like a lot of students will drop out because iGrad was the only place in Kent that really helped us out. The staffs worked with us. They never gave up on us. They kept on pushing us up towards to where we need to get to. And I've been working real hard, and I'm on that stage to graduate. And yeah, I just want to be the first one in my family to walk on stage because that's my parents' only hope. And I'm just trying to make them happy. And yeah.
All right, is Maxwell Hernandez here? Yes. Okay.
I'd like to give my mom my minutes.
All right. I don't know if we're doing that, but,
You can't give the minutes, so she can go to the
Yeah.
house,
all right.
but they can't donate the minutes.
Okay, well, then I'm going to go down the line according to the names that were given to us in order. And so the first step to speak is Maria Munoz-Roach. Followed by Hamdi Abdul, Brandy Ingham, and Zach Stockdale.
Thank you. Good evening, board members of the Kent School District, Kent Education Association, and community members. My name is Maria Munoz, and I work with the Latino community here in Kent, and I'm accompanied by two of my friends and partners in this work with the community, Barbara Phillips and Hamdi Abdul. And together, we're just a small sample of a larger group. We represent the Kent Education Equity Partnership. The Kent Education Equity Partnership is a collaboration of community-based organizations that serve families in need and students who struggle to achieve academically in our current school system. We represent the families we serve and have the trust of the community members we represent. We speak with one voice of concern for the current situation facing the Kent School District. It is our understanding that some community members and some representatives from the Kent Education Association publicly requested the resignation of Superintendent Dr. Calvin Watts. We are strongly opposed to the request based on the work Dr. Watts has done to advance equity in education and quality services for underrepresented populations in the Kent School District. In addition, we acknowledge that it takes time to create systemic change, and 2 years is not enough. The instability created every time a superintendent is removed or moves on trickles down to our students, and the community suffers for it. We are already on the third superintendent in the last 4 years. It is our opinion, along with the other members of the Kent Education Equity Partnership, that this would not help our students. We are and should all remember that our students are our main concern, and we wanted to come together with one voice. We have the Iraqi community not here today, or the Burmese community represented, but they're also part of this partnership, and we just wanted to share our view tonight. So respectfully, the Kent Education Equity Partnership and our allies in this work. Thank you.
And I took also 3 minutes just to say that we support Dr. Watts and his work. And at the same time, we are ready to work harder to make the possible changes as needed. We are in a time of change. Rome was not built in a day. We all deserve chances to make things better. We understand those who probably have issues, and we understand, and we ask that we all understand each other in these difficult times to better our children's, all our children's education, and make our families happy. Thank you.
Brandy Ingham.
Good evening, board members and community. So you guys are advocates for the kids, and so I'm kind of here being an advocate for the littles because there's a lot of talk about the upper grades and their graduation, and that's important too, and I think sometimes the little kids get ignored or looked over. So I want to talk about recess. Peter Gray is a psychologist who studies play most of his career, researches and writes about the connection between the decline of play and the increase in social emotional problems. He says that without the outlet of pretend play to work through difficulties and understand and reenact troubling experiences, more and more children are facing an increased rates of depression and anxiety. Social play is a strong mediator for emotional self-regulation. So it's good for our kids' mental health. When we're limiting the recess time, they're not getting that outlet. They're not out there practicing those social skills or problem solving and getting the exercise that they need. I don't know if you've ever been in a kindergarten classroom at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but it is scary. And we're losing seat time. I mean, we want minutes to have a certain amount of minutes that the kids are in school, and I get that, and it's great. But we're losing those minutes because we're working on behaviors, and we have too many behavior issues that can be solved by having more time outside and more recess time. So it's also good for their brain development. And every having more seat time minutes without those breaks goes against any bit of research that I've ever seen. And I'm sure KEA can bring up a lot of research about what good recess is for the kids and how it's going to benefit for the kids. And there's studies out there that show that schools that increase the recess time have better production. And it's just important for our littles. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was in our move to mainstream more kids and be more inclusive, the teachers are not getting the support that we need. Programs are closing, kids are returning to their home schools, and they're being put in gen ed classrooms without a lot of extra training and professional development. You've got teachers, brand new teachers too, who have never worked with kids with autism or ADHD or, oppositional defiant disorder. And those are in our classrooms, and we need the training to be able to know how to work with those kids, because most of the time we don't have an extra body or an extra aid to help support that. And everybody in the school needs to know, how are these kids thinking? Why do they think the way they do? Why is their behavior stemming, and how do we fix it? And is discipline appropriate or not for what we're seeing? And so I think that really needs to be considered, that there needs to be more support for your gen ed teachers when you're mainstreaming some of our more non-neurotypical kids.
Zach Stockdale, followed by Michelle Greenwood Bettinger, followed by Ms. Fuller, followed by Shannon Jeffson, and Ray Lee.
Hi, you guys, I think you got to know me by now. I'm Zach Stockdale, a teacher at Kent Meridian. I wanted to thank you for being able to be honored to stand in front of you for a national board. It was a lot of work. I'm really glad to be done with it, but it was also quite a lot of fun. Part of why I got up to speak, though, is about the state of national boards in this district. I don't know if you know the process for funding for national boards from the teacher point of view. It is pretty expensive. It's about a $2,000 commitment from the teacher outlay to do. It's got 4 components. Most teachers do this by getting a conditional loan from OSPI. You pay for one component, about $400-something. You pay $75 a year to register, and then OSPI pays for the rest. And then you have, when you pass your national board, you get, OSPI takes that money back out of your first board check. And it's what I did. We have actually a very nice part of the contract that the district helps reimburse that, and it's been really solid. I was happy to get that check too. But the one main requirement to that is that you are participating in a national board cohort program. I was in the district's board cohort program for the last 2 years, and it was very useful. We get together, it was in this boardroom for multiple hours, multiple days, writing papers, going over papers like that. This year, hope you noticed we had 40 pass this year, and they talked about the board cohort for this year, currently at 10. And part of it is originally at the beginning of this year, we were told there would be no national board cohort offered in Kent due to cost. I was told late, around January 1st, it was offered to only teachers at Title I schools because that was where the funding came from. This made it so that there were a number of teachers in Kent who were ineligible to qualify for the OSPI program unless they had to go and hunt and find another program outside of our district. If the board, and this is actually the first time I heard the board's goal was to get to 25% national board teachers. Going forward, that's going to be a problem. You're not going to get 25% just in Title I schools. I felt Director Ross really kind of hit that on the head, that PD in general and the long-term consequences for some of these budget things, My understanding, I'm happy to be corrected, but it sounds, from what I've heard, the PD department at KSD is minimal to non-existent for next year. That's kind of what we're being told. It is not just teachers who require PD. Paras have requirements, classified have them, Teamsters, all of them have them. And right now we're all kind of wondering, where is that going to come from if it's not coming from KSD, which is where most districts, most teachers and all other staff get it from internally in their district. Last I heard, the person in charge is not going to be here, and I've not heard yet about her replacements. It keeps coming back to money. If we're not getting that professional development, that continuing education, that is in the long term going to be harmful for our students. We need people to be able to trust our district. It still comes back to money. I still stand by the KEA resolution that we need a replacement in district leadership to build that trust again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Greenwood-Bettinger. You guys know me. I'm persistent, if not anything. This all started with toilet paper. It started with that flyer about the toilet paper being in the schools, and I gotta tell you, I go to the schools a lot for different things, and you know what? There's extra toilet paper stacked up in that bathroom, but every high school restroom I've been to, there's one roll in the girls' stall, and there's no extra roll. And, you know, that's inherently discriminatory to our girls who might be fearful going into a restroom that there won't be any toilet paper. And ladies, I think you all can feel that fear. This is government by the people, for the people. Mr. Hardy, thank you for asking that question about MSOC. I asked it at the second community meeting, and Dr. Watts, you said you would get back to me. You know my email address. So I'm still concerned about the budget. Dr. Harmon spoke about that one big glaring error, but then never really delved into it. I was here at the work meeting, and I still don't feel like I've gotten a good explanation of that. I see positions open for administrators with six-figure salaries, and I see teachers going away. I see uncertainty in my children and their friends about what's going to happen next year. Will their AP classes be there? Will their choir classes be there? I see all sorts of things like that. And you know what? I'm not going away. My butt's going to be sitting there, and I'm going to be paying attention to all of this. I gave up with Dr. Vargas because he wouldn't help at all. But you know what? There's no more giving up. I'm persistent, and I'm going to be sitting right there every time I can. And I hope all of you will be sitting here too.
Hi, my name is Deanne Fuller. I'm a concerned citizen who lives in Covington, and I'm also a employee of the Kent School District. At iGrad Academy, I was here at the last board meeting, and there was a lot going on, so we have a little more time this time. And we are very concerned about our school and not knowing if we are staying open. We have asked over and over and over again if we will be open for our students. There are so many things. We are a 12-month school, so we're open during the summer. We do recover FTE from students that have dropped out and have gaps in their enrollment, and so we do recover money from the state during the summer months when normally we wouldn't get that funding back. So we do have income coming in during the summer instead of having to put it out for summer school. We also are open till 8:30 at night, and our assistant principal was moved. She was our nighttime administrator, and we cannot run without an administrator at our school. And so are our hours changing? Are we closing at 4:30? We have asked this for a month and have had not one answer, not an email back, nothing. And so the transparency of the district letting us know what's going on, these kids need to know if they're going to be there for the summer. Green River is enrolling for summer programs. We're letting them know if we have FTE left for their students. I mean, I don't understand why we can't get an email back from someone saying, you're closing at 4:30, or, it's just, I don't get it. Is this how communication, two-way communication, or transparency, or how our administration works, where you just don't answer? You just don't answer, and people just keep asking and asking. Our principal found out that our assistant principal was being moved through an email in the morning. No one contacted her to let her know we were losing our assistant principal. That's how we found out. And we're still waiting. Thank you.
All right, Shannon Jeffson.
3 minutes, right? I don't get 6? Okay. We'll just see how I make this happen. All right. Understanding the world is progressing in unison means even the experts must adapt. Over the last month, we have repeatedly shared our lack of trust in district leadership. We have requested audits, evaluations, and transparencies with no accommodations for those requests. If the board cannot hold themselves accountable, who will? Conversations take 2 or more players to discuss concerns. Holding a public forum to give the appearance of good communication does not equate to community conversations. The current model of these meetings is KSD speaks at attendees. Attendees are not allowed to communicate back. Therefore, by definition, this is not the two-way conversation you envisioned in your blueprint. According to the blueprint, research and practice rationale, communication becomes high impact when it encourages collaboration focused on a shared vision. Aligned two-way mutual communication promotes understanding of the perspective of others. A shared vision requires input from all stakeholders, something we have all been promoting at these meetings. Without developing mutually agreed upon norms for communication, the community is not going to be able to trust the board is listening with intention. If you are the ones writing the norms and not asking the community to help develop the norms, then you are already eliminating the intention of collaboration. If you want community approval, you must ask the people, what does communication mean to you? Then you must listen and act to implement. You must follow your own mission. Please consider the school board. I consider the school board to be the Supreme Court of local education. Thus, I presume finances were closely monitored with multiple perspectives considered before decisions were made. I do believe, had the board updated their methods for conducting business to a modernized standards of operations, none of this would have happened because any one position would not have the power to inflict so much damage. Currently, the superintendent's office is a pipeline for incoming communication. This is a term of Resolution 1391, as set by the board per line item number 9 and 10. Per the board's rules, the superintendent's office filters all complaints, suggestions, and concerns. It then triages communication to determine what is to be shared with the school board. Obviously, this is a conflict of interest where transparency can be questionable due to the opportunity to manipulate what information is passed on and what is withheld, regardless of whether this is actual or intentional. Equity would suggest having a standard in place prevents any potential for misuse. Accountable business practices would not allow one stakeholder so much power. This allows for potential to fraudulently represent the concerns of the community. It destroys trust as it skews perception, thus the accusation of not being transparent, and also placing blame on such as the superintendent when initially that was set per the rules of the board. The point is, if you do not address the systemic problems and how you function as a board, we will most definitely see a repeat of these problems. Problems like eliminating half of the IT department in a globally recognized district where we are heavily technology dependent. So dependent we have to push back report card windows because we cannot access our digital grading systems of Canvas or Skyward. If we were using systems thinking before making decisions, we would immediately recognize the cost of eliminating our IT department, not costs associated with monetary savings, but rather the academic cost of lost teaching time. How will our students perform on these state tests this year compared to previous years? Did your financial decision create a district-wide testing disadvantage for our own students? If so, who will admit it when that happens? Or will teachers, principals, and schools be blamed? Will you suddenly shuffle all of your admin around in 3 years thinking it will cure the condition? In closing, I would like to say that it is the board's job to promptly address individual issues that hinder the board's effectiveness. That is your protocol guidelines. You have been notified by this community, by members of the union, by your teachers, and by your staff that we expect you to follow your own requirement, but we have yet to see that happen. This is not a matter of people complaining. This is a matter of people doing their job. The school board has a job. And if you don't want to do that job, then maybe you shouldn't have run for that position. I recognize that these are difficult choices that you must make. But we can't sit here and wait for just the handful of people on the board that listen to us take charge of the situation. It needs to be collective, it needs to be communal, and it needs to meet the guidelines that your own blueprint suggests. Thank you.
Ray Lee?
Good evening, Board. Dr. Watts. I have a couple of things I'd like to speak to tonight. One, I just became aware of. I wasn't aware of it until just a couple of minutes ago. The possibility of closing iGrad? Seriously? Really? You could consider closing iGrad? The recovery? If that's true, then what's the plan for recovering those students? Or do we just close the door on them and tell them sorry? Seriously, iGrad? Consider closing one of the 4 comprehensive high schools first, please. Let iGrad recover them. Thank you. When it comes to the budget, that's a heavy lift there, talking about the budget and where we are and how we got there. There are lots of narratives out there floating around about how we got there, the reasons for how we got there, and what we're doing to get ourselves out of the mess. Personally, I've done my own research. I've talked to people who I feel I can trust and gotten answers and taken their answers and gone back and double checked and did my own research. And for the most part, I'm pretty happy with what I've heard, right? Again, as it relates to the budget and some of the narratives that are floating around out there that are demanding, not asking for, but demanding that Dr. Watts be fired, I say to folks, why are you saying that? Well, look at the budget crisis he's put us in. Have you done your research? Have you talked to folks? Well, no, but it's what I heard, that he did it. He has to go. Well, doesn't make any sense to me. Right? I'm a pretty reasonable person. I have been attending regular board meetings here since 1990. One of the most involved community parents in this district. I know how to do my research. I'm a reasonable person. I'm not unreasonable. I would suggest that folks do their own research and talk to folks and assure themselves that the decisions that they're making are really the right decisions and not a decision based upon something that you were told or, and here's my deepest fear, I love this community. I've lived in this community since I moved here in 1979, 1980, and raised my 5 children here. I love this community. Do not base your decision I'm just going to say it the way it is, and I don't mean anything negative by it. Don't base your decision based upon race. Please, do not base your decision based upon race. I had a few other things. I'm not going to get to it. I want to be respectful. I heard the 3-minute time limit. I wish there were a little bit more. Just please be sensible. Thank you.
We have more cards. All right. Austin Freeman, followed by Gwen Dupree, followed by Jennifer. I apologize, is it Idzi? Idzi. All right.
Hello. I'm not up front because I didn't know if I wanted to speak. But when I'm referencing back to what I spoke about last time was about communication, and I've decided I'm going to speak about it again. Let's see, it was last week I went to the community conversation at my high school at Kentridge, and I actually went with one of my best friends. She is a sophomore, and we sat at the same table. And I want to say thank you to the district for a step in the right direction, but at the same time I also want to say that on my right-hand side I had the chance, just by, I guess I'll say magic, to sit with my vice principal. And it was really interesting listening to a parent directly across from you. It was interesting listening to a friend of mine who brought up perspectives I had never known about, and listening to my vice principal. And I have to say, I said it last time, and I say this as a solution-based comment, and I'll say it again. Dr. Watts, you said these are part of the new norm, part of the new reality of communication. Does that involve, I'm currently a Running Start student. One of the classes I'm taking right now is Introduction to Communications. And last night, as I was actually doing schoolwork, one of the big things that we focused on is just, the vocab term is environment, location, and timing. I said it last week, and I'll say it again, and I said it as a solution-based comment, and that is I asked, I think a month ago, why are these only an hour? And I understand that when a month ago school board meetings went for more than 3 hours, I can understand reluctance to make them longer, but I just have to say, if you want to rebuild trust with the community, at least from a student perspective, make them longer, make them at more locations, and make them more frequent. I know that you said they will be more frequent, but please take that step in the right direction. The other thing is I'm not sure about timing, so I just really want to touch on school board emails, and particularly I would really think it would be helpful to you guys. I think it would be helpful to the community as a whole if you put it out there that it is easier for a community member, whether it be a parent or a student or whoever, to send a direct email to their own school board district director instead of sending it to one as the board as a whole, because then that goes into Open Public Meetings Act thing. And I want to put that out there, and that is to find that information, you have to go to BoardDocs, and then you have to go to board protocols, and then someone has to read that, and then someone has to understand that. Why isn't that on the main page of the board website? Why isn't that under a how can you contact us, as in if you want to specifically meet with us, as if you specifically want to have a conversation with your individual board director, you are more likely to get a response back from individually emailing one of us rather than sending an email to us as a whole, because then we have to weigh on the president of the school board because he is the official spokesperson. And I'm just putting it out there for transparency and communication, and I hope that those changes will be made soon. Thank you.
Gwen Dupree, please. Okay, no Gwen Dupree. Jennifer Itzy.
Hello, members of the board and fellow community members. My name is Jennifer Idzi. I'm a substitute teacher with the district. I have 4 children, very active in PTA at the elementary and middle school. And I wanted to follow up with regards to the financial report in terms of the MCOS costs that Ross already had talking about. And I have to say, as a PTA treasurer and also as a PTA treasurer, or as treasurer and treasurer/vice president to another PTA, that PTA requests are increasing. So yes, yay that you are getting less requests for costs to your schools, but I'll tell you, my requests to the PTA are more and more. Pencil sharpeners, batteries, Scholastic and Scope magazines, things that are school related. Requests for my children to be able to have accelerated reader, which is a $4,000 cost. And it's not getting paid out of school budget, even though it is related to school and our children. School playground equipment, these things that should be covered by our district that are
now covered by PTA and my requests, and I'm having to ask my parents time and time again to give and give and give because you're saving money, and I'm not sure where that money is going. So yes, you feel like you're saving, but I'll tell you, as a person of the PTA, I feel like you're digging out of my pockets twice. The second is, I don't feel like this is a two-way communication. I appreciate the community conversations, but from all of my friends who attended, it didn't feel two-way. I feel very uneasy. I feel like I still have more questions than I have answers. I have sent a full entire email to you, Mr. Watts, and I have yet, after 3 months, to hear back in any way of communication. And that, to me, when I am a stakeholder and you say how important my 4 children are to your district and me as a person, I feel disheartened that my voice is not important enough to be followed up with. The other thing I have to say is your teachers and your students are stressed. Between all of this discommunication that you have given, my teachers are having to take personal days because they are so stressed and uneasy from 127 layoffs to 60 layoffs. They are uneasy about their job. Do I need to find a new job? Am I safe in my job? It is so stressful on them that this is not a healthy work environment for them. And I, as a parent, I'm trying to figure out how I feel about that. My students are stressed because they heard about their students leaving jobs. My kids ask me every day, which of my children or which of my teachers will I not see next year at my school? And I have to tell them, I don't know. My child who will be going into high school next year says, which of my AP classes may I not have? And I, as a parent, have to say, I don't know. And I will tell you, I will be at these meetings and I will continue to fight because I have 4 children as well as all of the other children at these school districts and my schools. And I need you to do better for our children, and I need you to do better for the staff at all of our schools. Thank you.
Samson Teckley? Miss Gwen Dupree.
Good evening. My name is Gwen Dupree, and I have lived in this community for over 40 years. I beat Ray. So I had 3 children to attend the school district and go to Kent Ridge High School and graduate, and now they're doing very well. I'm surprised at some of the concerns that have come up tonight, but I know this is the place where you state your concerns. I am against some of the issues in terms of letting go our superintendent. To me, that's not a problem-solving situation. I can remember some of the same things happening to my children in this district many years ago. And when I had to change my 5th grader to a new school as a 6th grader, and he came home and said, Mom, please don't let it happen. And I thought, you know, you're going to be okay. You're going to go to a new school, you're going to meet more friends, and you're going to be okay. That was my job to do as a parent, not to say, oh, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. You're going to be okay because I'm going to be there for you. And I know it's difficult, and I'm not trying to be critical of anyone that spoke, because being a parent is tough, especially when someone else is making the decision for your children. But I believe in public education. I believe in the people that sit here, that they're going to have a good education, and if not, then I need to step in when that's not happening. Budgeting and that kind of thing, it's tough. It's tough in the school district as well in your home budget. Things don't always come out the way you plan it or what you suspect. If there's a tragedy that happens, your budget could go crazy. But you still have to hang in there and support the folks that are in those positions. We vote every year. We don't have kids in the district now. We vote every year for the levy, because without that, you won't even have what you have. And school districts have to go through what they go through every single year. And yes, I believe that community people have to be involved. They have to know and try to understand. But if you come to a meeting already with the set agenda, oh, you're not transparent, I can't trust you, you're going to leave out with the same kind of thing. So I would encourage the community to stick together. We have enough of stuff going on in our country now that things are falling apart. Let's not have the Kent School District fall apart. Like I said, I've been here for 40 years. As a matter of fact, I used to work in the school district. So I kind of know, yeah. Yeah, I've seen some people I haven't seen in a long time. It's kind of nice. Hi. So I would encourage you to support your superintendent, support the people that we elected, but don't leave them just to do it by themselves. I can't imagine you answering an email from me. How many kids are in this district?
27,000, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, my gosh. I mean, I can't even get through my emails, and I don't have nearly the amount of people here. What a luxury. If he answers you, I'm going to take my hat off. Wow. Don't you have anything else to do? No, I don't really mean that, but that's a high expectation you guys have of the superintendent. I mean, high, unrealistic. But anyway, I wish you luck. If there's anything I can do to support the school district, next year, 2019, I might have 3 grandkids coming. And so call on me. My number is on the card. I'll certainly, and my husband too, will come back. We're both lifelong educators, and we want to support this district because it's been a viable district, and it's not time for us to get rid of our superintendent and then go, and have somebody else come in, and we're not going to be happy with that person either. Okay? The other thing, I would hope that we could. 3 minutes are up. I didn't hear that buzzer. Okay. One other thing that I would like to happen is for us to look at what's happening with our students in our high school, iGrad. Is it iGrad? Wow, that's wonderful. In terms of the diversity that's going on, kids graduating from high school, let's have the parents out to fight for that kind of thing. Thank you. Sorry.
All right. Samson, take it.
Board members, my name is Samson Sackle. I'm a social worker at iGrad Academy. Didn't really plan on talking today, but it's really hard to fathom the idea of iGrad not being a part of the Kent School District next year. You'll hear it time and time again because, when you go with the information sessions that we have and you see the optimism in the students that come in that door because they weren't able to be successful in the traditional high schools that they were in, it's crazy. You feel like you are that student as well because you know that they can be successful there. And so, Holly Hassan came up here and she told you just about what iGrad means to her. And so there are 300, 400, there's so many more students in the Kent School District that could benefit from iGrad. And so, I'm a social worker, and so I will advocate for all the students there. And if it takes, more students coming in here to talk to you guys and letting them know what iGrad means to them, then we can do that. That's not a problem. But, iGrad is more than just a safety net. And I feel like more people need to understand just how much it benefits our students. We're not just teaching education, we're teaching life skills. And so, if we're really successfully preparing all students for their futures, we need to really keep that in mind because there are students that are just literally out in the streets because, school didn't work for them. Well, iGrad doesn't just work for one or a few students, it works for every student because we work to do whatever we can to support them. So that's really all I have to say right now, but you will see me the next meeting and the meeting after that, hopefully with just, with more information about just kind of what iGrad means to some of our students and possibly staff because really it affects so many students. And, if you could just see their faces when we had to tell them that iGrad may not be there next year and might not be there next year, it's more than just, about them. It's about the other students, it's about their counterparts. And so, yeah, that's really all I had to say. There's so much more you could say, but I'll let you guys, take on some of that information so that you can be prepared for the next meeting, and hopefully we can talk a little bit more. Carol Cleven, if you guys could give a round of applause for her, she was wonderful. It's it's surprising that she doesn't already have gray hair. She's really a fighter. And I'll tell you what, everybody at iGrad will fight with her because it's not enough for us not to have these answers. And I know you guys are big. There's a lot of stuff going on, but you guys do owe iGrad some information as to how and what we can do to, better the situation and find out what we need to know. So I thank you guys for your time. I will not meet that 3 minutes, so hopefully I had a better.
All right, we are up to our legislative update with Director Hardy.
All right. Surprisingly, when there's no legislation session, I actually have a lot of updates. Mainly when it's been a month, there's not anything in session, so really what we've kind of gone down is legislative representatives kind of actually talk to each other between school districts, talk to resources at the OSPI. And so following the close of the 2018 legislative session, there's a lot of resources coming out from OSPI because districts all across the state, they're trying to understand the impacts to the new legislation have on funding and also may have on bargaining. So there's currently a lot of differences of opinion on specific bill language. One such example is the statutory language around the 3.1% cap on total salary increases for the 18-19 school year. Regardless of how it's interpreted, one of the things that OSPI is trying to make sure people understand, nothing in the law requires districts to increase salaries beyond.
Even more recently, we'll plan to continue that, not as a strategy, but just as a way we do business. It takes time. It's an investment, but it is one that we must continue to answer questions, certainly to be present, but also to, as I said, to build trust within our community. These 3 or 4, community conversations that did take place over the last couple of weeks did allow for us to learn a great deal about common themes that were discussed this evening, as a matter of fact, from several of our family members and community members. Concerns about safety, about budget, about classes, about course offerings. So if someone was not here and they were at community conversations, they would have also been able to be informed. So as we've heard this evening, I would offer this. Community conversations, while that appeared to be an event, it is not just an event. It is a way that we need to continue meeting others where they are and focusing on, as I heard you say, President Vengadoslam, at the beginning of our meeting, to listen for understanding. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Ross.
Thank you.
All right. Shall we start this way? Director Strauss.
Start this way. So I had the opportunity to go to the community conversation at Kent Lake last night. I'd been out of town for work previously, so I hadn't been able to attend with those. The theme on one of the tables, on one of the questions that we talked about was on connections and how important it is for students to have connections to people. And I thought about that again and reflected on that as I went to mentor today. I'd missed a couple of weeks because I'd been out of town, and the young man that I mentored was very excited that I was there, and he'd been a little sad that I had been gone. And I had often wondered, am I really making a difference to this young man as I go in? There's a little bit of a language barrier, and I practice my Spanish a little bit, and he works on his English as we try to connect and work on things. And it reminds me, as we go through times like this, how important those connections are and how important it is that we work together to find solutions. And our kids have such potential, and it always, I guess it really hurts sometimes when I hear people say those kids or, certain kids. All kids have so much potential. And as we work together, we can help those students reach their potential. Thank you.
I'd say, it's been a month since our last meeting, so we've had the opportunity to go to a lot of community meetings, including community conversation I was at Kent Meridian. Then several other, call them 1-on-10 or individual group discussions that I've had, some with people in this room. Many with impactful staff throughout the district, just seeking to understand more. But I wanted to share the most impactful meeting I had. It was a very large meeting. There were about 30 of us. But granted, 26 of them was the kindergarten class that I was at East Hill Elementary. But I was there. It was actually a teacher who spoke at the last board meeting talking about class sizes. I was there. There were 26 kindergartners in that class. At what point there were 3 paras providing push-in, various services in different groups, talking about their needs. And so when I say, when we think as ways to get close to our community, the most impactful is to be there in the classroom with the kids where we can, helping out with art activities, whatever else we can do. And if we can't do that, talking with those teachers who are there day to day and helping them understand. We see class sizes, we see these people join, these people go here, but we don't necessarily see it day to day. What it really looks like for new teachers, for experienced teachers. I'd say that was the most impactful, and of course I'm going to go back and hang out with those kids some more, read them a book or something. And the one thing I wanted to add on, this is more of a plug on behalf of OSPI itself. They are pushing out a Pick Your Priorities in Public K-12 Education. It is a survey. You just go to OSPI, they have a survey, communications and community outreach. It's a statewide thing, but it's still our opportunity to rank what are our priorities that will go with OSPI and potentially go to the state legislature. So that was my plug for that.
All right. Well, I was at 3 of the 4 community conversations, and I understand that maybe people wanted something more, but I think it was a good start. And I will say that I did see and hear two-way conversation, and I heard what people's concerns were. I've addressed some of them already to Dr. Watts, and we need to continue them. And I think as we do them, it's going to be even more two-way communication and just have people more involved. I think people came with the expectation that a lot was going to be done, and not as much was done as maybe they thought it should have been done because of the time limitation. I attended the Meeker Band Spring Concert, and that was really good. And again, going back to my own music background, it was just fun watching them, 7th grade band and 8th grade band and the jazz band playing, and to see how much they've progressed over that 1 year. I attended the Multi-Tiered Support System Steering Committee meeting, the last one of the year. Going to be taking, and that's taking an assessment. Each school is going to be taking an assessment of itself as to where it is on the 3 tiers. I know from experience, one-on-one experience, that someone I know graduated from Tier 2. So I know that was working in that school. Saturday, I went to Green River College for the history, I can't remember the exact name of it, the history event, the competition. We had 21 students, or
31.
31? Okay. I only got to see a couple of them because I had something else to do in the afternoon, but I did get to see Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton duel, the lead up to the duel. And 2 girls, it was a performance. They did a beautiful job. They had memorized their lines and they delivered with great expression. I also saw a documentary about the Bangladeshi Liberation War. And that was something that was important to that student. And then there was, I guess it was another documentary. Yeah, it was another documentary on the Missouri Compromise and the effect of it on the Civil War and how it affected the Civil War and slavery and all like that. And it was just wonderful to see what each student chose as his or her passion, I guess. And so I was very impressed. And I was sorry that I didn't get to see more students. Yesterday, I went to Kentwood and sat in on Adam Jones's AP Art History class, we got to see some of them. They had SAT testing and senior role presentations, so some of the class was kind of like Swiss cheese, but we did get to see some of the presentations, and it was impressive with what the kids were saying and what they know. Second period, I stayed and I went to John Bush's social emotional learning class for freshmen, and I was incredibly impressed with the content that they're working with. I'd love to see that spread out a little bit further than Kentwood. I'll just put it that way. And I'm going to talk to John a little bit more about that. I'm going to Kent Meridian's Multicultural Assembly tomorrow morning. And then next week, May 3rd, Thursday morning at 7 a.m. at KPA is the Community and Schools annual fundraising breakfast. And Community and Schools is a nonprofit that supports as wraparound services for our students, works with McKinney-Vento students, works with kids who are maybe not as engaged in school as they could be or have problems from home. I mentor 3 kids. And my oldest one, I've been with her for 3 years. I started with her as a senior at KPA. She's now just been accepted at the University of Washington, Tacoma for her junior year next fall. So I'm really proud of her. Yeah. And another one of mine is working on credit reclamation in a very interesting situation and is going to graduate from that program too and then come back to KPA to finish her school. So just point of privilege, I guess I'd love to see everybody there at the Communities and Schools breakfast. It's really important. That's their main fundraising event of the year, and it really helps support our kids. Personal privilege, I said this at the Kent Area PTA Council meeting on Monday. You need to be really careful about the assumptions that you pass on as what you think are true, because they get passed on and people think, oh, that's true, this is going to happen. And I heard some things tonight already that just be careful what you take as truth. You need to investigate further before you pass things on. Enough said. All right.
All right, so I attended, with Community Conversations, I was able to attend 2 of them. And I also engage with community members in different one-on-one. I've met with some folks, and I'm excited to see some more positive conversation happening. I feel as though the loudest voices have been the voices of dissent, and those are not the voices that represent everyone, so I'm really excited to hear voices of support, voices of solution, voices of coming together, because we are all in this together to support all 28,000 of our children, not just specific programs, not just specific classrooms. I think one of the most powerful things I heard from parents is that learning during the community conversations is hearing different parents talk about their experiences in schools, because I think what happens is people assume what's happening in your building is happening district-wide, and I think there's a lot of learning to understand there's a lot of autonomy, and that's not necessarily the case, and I think there was a lot of learning and growth that happened in that. I will say, one of the slightly frustrating pieces is that, kind of to what Karen is saying, there are a lot of narratives out there, and at times, I've come to the understanding that some people don't want to hear and some people don't want to listen. And so trying to engage those folks in conversation can be difficult. I've been doing it for a long time now, so and I've got a pretty thick skin. But I would just encourage, I'm happy to talk to folks, happy to meet with folks, happy to have civil and productive conversation. I mentioned in another arena that, this meeting is much better than the last 2 that we've experienced as far as, communications and sometimes personal attacks and sometimes, just the tone of the conversation and the comments. And if you don't believe me, you can go back and look at the videos. because it existed, and the rudeness. And I think, again, coming together in a productive way, because the reality is we are all here to support our students. I mean, as much as you guys might, or people might not understand, every one of us here has families and jobs and lives, but we are all here to spend hours together, hours to address the issues that are brought up, hours researching, hours trying to learn, hours talking to people. So that is important to us. And I feel that that gets lost sometimes in some of the conversation. So I'm just reminding you that we are here to serve our students. We spend hours doing it. But that's okay, that's what we signed up for. So I will also say I had the opportunity to go to Tri-Cities and watch a competition, a choir competition, the Jazz Unlimited choir competition. It was fantastic. I went yesterday to Auburn High School to see the middle school choir competition, and that was fantastic. There's a theme here. But, you know, in addition to, you know, mentoring students and supporting students. So again, that's what drives me. I know that's what drives a lot of us. And we are in this together, and I think if we understand and respect that about each other, we can really go a long way towards making the situation better. So thank you for your time.
All right, I'm going to make it fast. I know everybody wants to leave, and so I just want to first thank Dr. Thomas. She's leaving us for Federal Way, and I wanted to thank her for the PASA program. We had an opportunity to attend her final PASA celebration for our parents, and it's always wonderful, and we thank her for her leadership there. I want to also thank the community members from the Kent Education and Equity Partnership. We had a chance to discuss their concerns together, and I really appreciate that they're here and the amount of work that they do. If anyone is interested, would love to have you check out their education program that they support through the Roadmap District, and the amount of funding, I think, I don't know, Maria, you had mentioned about, I think about $2 million or so, is it, that they are contributing in kind to our schools. And so the work that they're doing is significant, and we need to start recognizing and appreciating our community members who give up so much of their time to our school district as well. I also wanted to mention that the Maker Band concert, I had a chance to go see and speak with Carol Brewster, and I want to say one of the things that I followed up with her is talking about instrument repair costs, and you know, if we had some of these partnerships that were funding our band equipment, I think we would get a much more robust program. I know we had tremendous jazz band programs at KM and many other schools many years ago, and we've got to do everything we can as a community to support that, and so I'm hoping that we can pull some foundation money at least to help with those repairs for our students. I went also to the Green River Washington State History Day and congratulate Cedar Heights and Kent Mountain View Academy for all the students who are finalists in their program. Appreciate Adam Jones and his Middle East architecture class and AP history. As with other board members, being in the classroom is really important. I've always felt that. That's where we connect and we see what's happening in the ground. So I hope to visit more classrooms, and I appreciated all the folks who coordinated the community conversations and the people who attended those conversations. And those are people who really want to make a difference and not just complain that there is no transparency or no conversation. It's not the format that everybody wanted, but we will, in the future, we've talked about that, how we can change that formatting so that it is more of a one-on-one conversation, okay? And so with that, I am going to adjourn the meeting, this meeting, and we as a board Superintendent, we will be recessing to an executive session for approximately 30 minutes. All right, thank you very much for coming. Meeting adjourned.